with a still security, but on a good side, where the Director of Veteran Affairs in the Ministry of Defense, Brigadier Emmanuel Musinguzi, together with the outgoing Japanese ambassador to Uganda, His Excellency Kameda Kazuaki, officially launched the tailoring project to help the widow group in Nakao Division at Naguru Infant School. Let us see this report.
Brigadier General Emmanuel Musinguzi, together with the outgoing Japanese ambassador to Uganda, His Excellency Kazuaki Kameda, officially launched the tailoring project that will assist the UPDF Widows Veterans Organization in Nakawa Division at Naguru Infant School. Mashawi Aida Winnie, the chairperson to this organization, explains the reason why these machines were given to them.
Machines zenungezo, embroidery machine, domestic machine, singer machines, the brother machine, tuina machines zenunge zetufunyo nakuwarere, computer muzirabe, monitor muzirabe, tufunye ebintu bingi. Kubadde nti abakyala abanamwandu n'abaana baabwe amafuzi bamulekwa. Tuyinamu abasajja widowers n'abakyala banamwandu nabo mulamwa gwaffe kwegatira wamu kiriko ennaku zino tukolere wamu tusobole okugoba obwavu kubanga ennaku zino teriyo omuntu n'omu oli waka olinda mbu bajja kubaako kyoyambibwa oba gavumenti ekugabirire nga tolina abantu balala bewegaseko.
Ida requests the government to give the widows land so as they can engage in farming activities, and she further requests all orphans and widows to come and join the team so as to live a better life.
Twinataka gavumenti yaffe ennungi president waffe Museveni omulungi tukwegayiride n'omuntu omulala bw'oba gy'oli tubalabye abantu bangi nga muyamba bannamwandu tubalabye mwena gye muli saagala kumenya manya naye gye muli abasobola kuyamba bannamwandu ne ba orphan mutuyambe twetaaga tufune ettaka we tusobola okuyingira mu agriculture abakyala boolaba balina amaanyi nga bakyasobola okulima n'olwekyo kiriwo ennaku zino tulina okwegatta twegatte bangi yo goro yaffe tusobola okwatira wamu onjigirize kyesimanyi nange nkuyigirize kyotamanyi.
General Emmanuel Musinguzi says the main objective is to see that these orphans can attain lifetime skills which will help them in the future, and he also explains how these victims can acquire help in the Ministry of Defense.
Is a sample group yetuje mnyingi tulage Japanese ambassador bichi the veterans byabakora ekisooka balina okuregistaringa nga bamulekwa baba maji oba abamaji aganyika nganza mumara kuregistaringa musaako abo kati tuba tunonya manya tunonya certificate ya registration nga cooperative siri bichibyo yagala kukora because bisaako ebeyina ebigendererwa byayo.
Margaret Ziwana Ntongo, aspiring woman MP Nakawa Division, appreciates the government that has come to help these vulnerable groups and also the widows who decided to come up with this group.
Wekibina kyaffe kino ekyaba UPDF Widows and Orphans Organization kibaddewo okumala akabanga nja kubeebaza kubanga tebaatuula kwekubagiza oba okwesaasira kubanga bannamwandu. Njagala kubeebaza kubanga mu buvumu obwo basobola oba basobodde okubaako kye bakola. Baatandika okukola emirimu gino gye mulabyeko omuli okutunga amasweta ago agasinga ga ssomero eyo bizinesi ekola. Baatandika okutunga ebitengi, baatandika okukola emirimu egireeta ensimbi.
His Excellency Kazuaki Kameda, the ambassador of Japan to Uganda, says the Japan-African Cooperation has more plans in store for Uganda, which have been delayed by the COVID pandemic.
Also, Director of the Veteran Affairs General mentioned that yes, it now is ongoing to equip the rehabilitation center in Mubende with a set of equipment. So still there are some challenges because of COVID and others, but I think with again with the help of Japan-Africa Development Corporation, that this kind of support will come soon.
Nazri Millicent, Hajara Nanyanzi, Now TV, News Now.
So much for staying with us on Now TV. We are also live on different social media platforms at Now TV Uganda, and also we have loads more that we are broadcasting right there for you. You can go on and follow us and like our content, plus of course engage with us to make sure that we do have a discussion together. Plus we'll keep you informed about what's going on in the country. I'm being told that it's about 18 degrees centigrade right here in Kampala and a little bit cold, so you might consider coming in with a jacket or something to keep yourself warm as you go on during the day. You never know, things could change, but of course lots is expected. Some thunderstorms expected in the middle of the day, so you should be thinking of putting on a jacket or something to keep you warm as you go on during the day. On a day where the students are expected to be going back to school, of course those ones in the candidate classes, and there has been a lot of limitations this time out. First of all, the other students go back to school only for the candidates who were just allowed to go back to school, but leaving that one alone. Even the ones who were allowed to go back to school were expected to go back to school with sanitizers, masks on, and a couple of measures there to control the COVID-19. But UPC has applauded governments for the financial support she has given to the schools to help in the reopening. I mean, it's the COVID-19 measures. Now, there have also been reports from the media where there has been the government is going to pay the registration fees for the candidates in government schools. However, according to the media, some reports, some private schools have come out also saying that they cannot afford the operating under the capacity, and of course as well as implementing the SOPs in this situation. Of course, this leaves candidates at a disadvantaged stage. Such schools, of course, are not yet to decide their fate as of now, whether they will be going back to school or not going back to school, and how they will be surviving. And even if they open, guardians are most likely not to face rather difficult times in paying the school fees, because as you know, the government schools and private schools are quite different in terms of payments, and of course because as you just well know, the parents are already overstrained by getting to meet the ends all together. So we followed this report, and we were at the UPC when they were announcing this. Let us show you what was happening.
In his previous presidential address on 20th September 2020, the President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni gave a go-ahead for schools to be reopened on the 15th of October for only students in candidate classes, finalists on tertiary colleges, and finalists in universities. There has, however, been a debate amongst members of the public on how the reopening of schools will be done. Many are skeptic about the reopening of schools, with many saying the decision was a premature one, as many parents may not be able to come up with the fees to return children to school. Even the SOPs put in place may be a challenge. Members of the Uganda People's Congress, led by their national chairman, Okayi Lawrence, while at a conference, expressed concern that parents may fail to meet the required requirements to send their children back to school.
And being on the ground, a lot of experiences is going to unfold as most of the parents may fail to meet the required requirements, which are usually in form of school fees, to send back their children, and also in the candidate classes, there's the fees that are raised by Uganda National Examination Board.
UPC also applauds government for the financial support given to the government schools to help them with the reopening. The party, however, urges government to pay registration fees for all candidates in both public and private schools.
This leaves our candidates at a disadvantage, as such schools are yet to decide on their fate, whether to open or not to open. And even if they open, guardians are most likely to face difficulties in paying both school fees and registration fees, as they are already overstrained.
Sumaya Monge, Director Subi Cares, agrees with the UPC's concern and feels that government should take on the role of paying registration fees for candidates to ease the strain on parents.
naye agamba nandisobodde okusasula half oba emitwalo 3 naye registration fee oyo
tetumulina nti twandidde ssente ezibadde zifuluma mu kiseera ekya COVID-19 ezibadde ziyitingana nga tuziraba companies eza wano wennyini nga ziwaayo ssente tuwulira buwumbi bumeka bukadde bumeka ne tukwata ssente ezaava wabweru w'eggwanga ezirina okujja mu education sector zenantebe gavumenti ekwate ezimu ku ssente ezo saako ne budget endala esobola okuteekebwawo okusinga okuba nga tusaasanya ssente ne bagamba ne babawadde ekisawo bano bawa ekisawo basasulira abazadde registration fee okwetooloola eggwanga lyonna
bakendeezeeko ku bisale ebisale bireme kuba tebya bbeeyi nnyo abaana boononekedde waka abaana bafunye ebitali birungi nga bali waka naye kale bwe tuba nga pulezidenti yasalawo nti baddeyo batukendeerezeeko ku bisale by'essomero kubanga obudde buweddeyo.
Students are expected to return this 15th October 2020. Nazra Millicent, Hajara Nanyanzi, Now TV, News Now.
Mark the 17th of October to celebrate the efforts of the late Philly Bongolelo Taya in the fight against HIV/AIDS. The day will be marked with a memorial lecture at the office of the Prime Minister on 17th October. Uganda has over 1.4 million people living with HIV, and last year about 20,000 people died of HIV, and of course with also the related cases of HIV. Let us see this report.
HIV/AIDS was first discovered in Uganda in the early 1970s, with some calling it witchcraft. Then, many patients were faced with stigma and not many would come public with the disease. The prominent musician, the late Philly Bongolelo Taya, was the first Ugandan to come public, saying he was HIV positive, irrespective of the stigma. To help many get the information about the virus, Philly Bongolelo Taya started releasing songs about the virus, with Alone and Frightened being among the many. Subsequently, messages about the virus started spreading, especially about prevention, and cases have since reduced, with only 1.4 million Ugandans having the virus as we speak. Government has since come up with the plan to kick the virus out of the country by 2030. Each patient is entitled to have free HIV medication across all government hospitals, although some patients have shunned taking medication.
Bami abasinga bwe bazuula nti balina obulwadde bwa mukenenya, of course sometimes kiba automatic nti ne bakyala baba balina obulwadde bwa mukenenya. Kati omukyala bw'akizuula nti alina agenda n'afuna eddagala. Kati abaami kye bakola kutandika kubba eddagala ly'abakyala. Mulekeraawo okubba eddagala ly'abakyala, mugende babakebere balabe sitasi yammwe basobole okubateeka ku ddagala lyemulwanidde okukola ki okumira.
Last year, 53,000 Ugandans were confirmed HIV positive, with 20,000 succumbing to the deadly virus. Majority of those who succumbed to AIDS are men who research indicates have given a deaf ear to testing for the virus.
Nansi temusasula muntu alina bulwadde bwa mukenenya, tulye nabo, tunywe nabo, ate ka mbabuulire omuntu bw'abeera nti mulwadde wa bulwadde bwa mukenenya nebo munywera ku kikopo ekimu tebokukwata.
To many, receiving the news of HIV positive is like a nightmare. However, Dr. Stephen Watiti, the chairperson National Forum of People Living with HIV Networks in Uganda, testifies of living with HIV/AIDS since early 1990s and encourages many to run to test to know their status.
And you find you're positive, don't just keep quiet. Talk to your loved one, maybe your partner, your wife or your husband, or your friend for support. You don't have to go to TV like I am, because for me, I did this because when I was very sick and I was helped, I thought I should help others.
To appreciate efforts by many who have come out to speak about the disease, government has come up with Bongolelo Taya Memorial Lecture as an appreciation for what the late did in the fight against the disease.
Agala nnyo okulaba bannayuganda abakoze ekisoboka okusevinga obulamu bw'abantu. Twasalawo nga government nga tuyita mu Uganda AIDS Commission nti tujja kuzanga olunaku luno tugifuule Philly Bongolelo Taya Memorial Lecture era nga tugenda kulukuza olw'omukaaga luno olujja.
Ramson Mhairwe, Now TV News Now.
It is 24 after 7 in the morning. We're just continuing to give you more stories as we just go on this morning. It's a little bit cold, considering if you're just coming in the city center, make sure that you have something really to keep you warm as you just go on during the day. But now, a couple living in Kalerwe, Kibezon, to be specific, is seeking to help their young daughter who got burnt in an accident while being served about 2 months ago. And now our reporter Joachim Sebuma was there to file for you this story.
Mugalula Richard, father to Chomuhanji Patience, is seeking for help for his sick child and says his child hasn't got any medical attention for the past 2 months. Patience got burnt from an accident while being served tea. Mugalula describes how he
yali agenzeke wa neighbor kati we yatuke wa neighbor nayingira mu nju kati ne mama w'omwana wa neighbor yali mu nyumba kati nze nali ndi wabweru ngeri kati omwana owa neighbor yasitule binika nga agijeno kumulya agenda kuteka mflaska chai kati omwana wa neighbor binika ne mubuka ngono Patience atuda alaba TV ne muyikira yena nagenda okulaba ngo mwana akoma tata banjocheza okumujja mu blouse nsanga ena aidi kati okumujja mu empale yona yagenda neddiba kati ne tutandikira awo mwana atulwalako kale asooka n'abeerako ewaka ennaku kati awo nalabira ngo mwana atabuse nefuna sente mwana mutwala mu ddwaliro lya private era mu ddwaliro bansaba zaali sente nyingi era nsasanyuza sente nyingi mu mbeera eno gye tubaddemu nga mbadde sikola ne maama w'omwana nga naye atudde waka nga tulabirira mwana kati omwana omusawo kye yakola yakikola yazza obulamu bwe era kati si bwati bwe yali eno waggulu kati ateredde naye okugulu kukyatulemeredde ate okugulu kuno kweweta bwe kuti kati kwetagisa sente empitirivu okuddamu bakugolole ku stretching.
Ndagiwe Rebecca, Patience's mom, says they expected help from their neighbor. They're losing hope after spending a lot of money catering for their child's medical bills. The couple is now living in fear that their child may get permanently lame because they can no longer afford her medication.
Ekyamutuukako yajja omuliro yajjira wa neighbor naye tetwafuna kuyambibwa konna ewa neighbor. Tusaasaanyiza sente nyingi tugenze mu malwaliro naye okugulu kukyagaanye okuwona.
Went to Patience's neighborhood where she was burnt, but the lady, as soon as we had arrived, squabbling on top of her voice, said she was footing Patience's medical bills, but to her surprise, Patience's dad was denying getting this help.
Mama mugende temugenda ku kamera tomutiteeka munnammwe ku kamera bwebyo baba nobaka
omwana we tegiyajja okitegeera omwana tumujjanja byakoze eki kati ntudde wali bano bajja waliwo omwami mbunze ntule mu kamera nnyonnyole
twamusondera ne sente tujja mukugira atuwe sente zaffe wabula
olaba likyali mbwalesa abamawulire mbu omwana yajjiira wange mbukola bulambunamu omwana okukola yajja nakamutukako mitwalo 5
Village caretaker Lubwama Umar, he got to know about this and tried to get some money for the child to be taken to hospital, but that wasn't enough since more money is still needed for Patience's health to get better.
Ensonga z'omwana pese nzimanyiko bekwatakwatanga bo kuba tebalina ssente baavu era tebayagala ekyo kibeerewo yekwatakwata kayina nange kennyini yakwata emitwalo 5 n'agimpa n'enjiwa Richard taata w'omwana ekyalo kino twekolamu omulimu era banneiba ne bakwata ekitabo ne basonda ssente eziri mu mitwalo 23 ne zigenda ne baziwa omwami we Richard fena tulumira wamu ku lw'omwana oyo.
Village chairperson Busula Sula says the incident wasn't intentional so both families should reconcile and work hand in hand so as to help the 4-year-old patient was burnt by a fellow child at the neighborhood 2 months ago. Now TV.
9th was one of the biggest days here in Uganda, where we attained our independence now. But the country is not yet independent, as very many people are saying. The independence was celebrated in a rather scientific way, where it was celebrated from the State House. But we are looking at what happened post-independence. Now, today we filed for you a story on who was the first president of Uganda. Let us see this.
As Uganda has just celebrated its 58th independence, we are still taking you through Uganda's journey. Sir Edward Muteesa was the first president of Uganda, and Dr. Milton Obote was the first prime minister. You could be wondering who Sir Edward Muteesa is. Muteesa was born at the house of Sir Albert Cook in Makindye, Kampala on the 19th of November 1924. He is the fifth son of Sir Daudi Chwa II, Kabaka of Buganda, who reigned between 1897 and 1939. His mother was Lady Irene Drusilla Namaganda. At the age of 5, his father took him in one of the best schools at the time, and that was King's College, Budo. He took him to live with the then headmaster of the college, Reverend H.M. Grace. At the age of 15, upon the death of his father on the 22nd of November 1939, he was proclaimed the Kabaka of Buganda and was installed outside the Ruwiri at Mengo on 26th of November 1939. Thereafter, he reigned under a council of regents until he came of age and assumed full powers. He then went to England to complete his education at Magdalen College, Cambridge, where he joined the Officer Training Corps and was subsequently commissioned as a captain in the Grenadier Guards. He was to rise through the ranks of the Grenadiers to become a Major General. He was the only black officer in the Grenadiers. From the start, Muteesa was defiant. In the early 1950s, the British government floated the idea of uniting British East Africa, that is Uganda, Kenya, and the then Tanganyika, that's now Tanzania, into a federation. Muteesa himself opposed the proposal and thus came into conflict with the British governor, Sir Andrew Cohen, who later exiled him. In 1962, Uganda became independent from Britain under the leadership of Milton Obote. Under the country's new constitution, the Kingdom of Buganda became a semi-autonomous part of a new Ugandan federation. Obote became the prime minister, while Muteesa became the first ever president of Uganda. Unfortunately, conflict was the order of the day between Uganda People's Congress and Kabaka Yeka. It was therefore no surprise when it collapsed chaotically in September 1964. Members of Kabaka Yeka in the National Assembly were crossing to the Uganda People's Congress, lured by the chance of office. The Buganda Regional Parliament passed a resolution in May 1966 declaring that Buganda's incorporation into Uganda had ended with the suspension of the constitution and requesting the federal government to vacate the capital city, which was in Buganda. Obote responded in an armed attack upon the King's Palace. Obote was triumphant, so he thought, as Muteesa fled to the United Kingdom. A year later, a new constitution that abolished traditional rulers in Uganda was promulgated. Muteesa died of suspected alcohol poisoning in his London flat in 1969. Identified by the British police as suicide, the death has been viewed as assassination by agents of the Obote regime. Muteesa's body was returned to Uganda in 1971 after the overthrow of Obote and given a state funeral at Kisubi, Nabulagala. Now TV, News Now.
Key points happening in the country right now. We have already hit about 10,069 COVID-19 cases, and of course I will be breaking down for you where these cases have been found, and also the attack on democracy and the freedom of the NUP coming up in the perspective shortly after this break.